I used to be skinny fat. You can see I had the fattest face ever. I was extremely insecure and I just hated how I looked. So my sole goal was to just look better. It was never about hitting a specific weight on bench press or running 5 kilometers within a certain amount of time. All I cared about was looking better and getting an aesthetic body. Over years of experimenting with my training, experimenting with nutrition, I've gotten fatter, I've also gotten leaner, and I've learnt a lot. There is a difference between how you should be training and eating if you want to optimize solely for aesthetics compared to how you should be eating and training if you were optimizing for another goal, perhaps performance in a particular sport. For example, Eliud Kipchoge, perhaps the best marathon runner of all time, and this is how he looks. It's not particularly aesthetic. The same goes for Eddie Hall, holds the world record in the deadlift, lifting 500 kilos. But at the end of the day, he just looks kind of fat. And by no means am I taking anything away from the achievements of both these men, especially Eddie Hall, because he could probably flick me and I would be dead. But it just goes to show that there's a difference in the way you should be training if you want to optimize for the way you look compared to optimizing for performance. The first thing I will say is that you need to get in the gym. And hopefully you already knew that, but you need to know that running, swimming, or playing soccer is not going to get you jacked. And I think that's a common misconception because there are elite athletes like Ronaldo that look absolutely insane and they play soccer. But what people forget is that the only way these guys are getting these types of physiques is by getting into the weight room. But once you're in the gym, there is a specific style of training that you need to employ that will optimize for your goal of aesthetics. Because Eddie Hall is probably in the gym every day, but he trains a different way because he's optimizing for strength. So your style of training needs to reflect your goal, which is aesthetics. The overarching theme that should be your priority every time you step into the gym should be to get a pump. Getting a pump every workout is the best indicator that you are optimizing for hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is just a scientific name for your muscles getting bigger. And there are several ways that you can organize your training to best achieve hypertrophy. The first thing is rep ranges. You always want to be doing more than 8 reps every set. Let me explain why. The way muscle is built is by actually causing tiny tears to your muscle fibers. And that occurs through training. When you lift, your muscles become damaged, and that's why you feel soreness after a workout. Over a few days, your muscles are repaired and they come back stronger and bigger. So the way we want to train, if we're maximizing for hypertrophy, is by causing the most amount of damage possible to our muscle. To an extent, doing a set of 12 reps of 50 kilos is going to do more damage than a set of 5 reps of 100 kilos would do. The total load in the set of 5 reps of 100 kilos is 500 kilos, but the total load in the set where you're doing 12 reps of 50 kilos is 600 kilos. Working in those higher rep ranges, anywhere between 8 to 20, is going to cause a much better pump as well. If you're doing less than 8 reps, it's extremely hard to get a pump, and we know that pumps are the best indicator that we're training correctly for our goals. The second thing that you need to be aware of is your rest times. Generally, your rest should not be too long, but it does depend on the exercise that you're doing. The heavier that you're lifting, the more rest that you probably need in between sets. If you're doing heavy squats, then your rest times can be 3 to 5 minutes. But if you're doing an easier exercise, for example, bicep curls, then your rest really shouldn't be more than 90 seconds. You don't want to rest too much to the point where you're going to lose that pump. And if you do rest for too long in between sets, then by the time you get to that next set, it's too easy because you've rested for too long. So the next time you go to the gym, get the timer app out on your phone and start it, and make sure to be aware of the amount of time that you're resting between sets, because you might be surprised at how long you're actually taking in between sets. The third thing is you need to be training to failure. What failure means is no longer being able to perform a rep of the exercise you're doing because your muscles have become so fatigued to the point where they cannot physically do another rep. One thing to note here is that there is a lot of talk about making sure that your form is perfect all of the time. But to actually achieve failure, sometimes your form needs to break down to get the best stimulus for muscle growth possible. So you can see me here doing a set of bicep curls. And as I've started the set, the form looks pretty okay. But as I get to the later reps, you can see my form starting to break down. If I stopped the set at the point where my form started to break down, then I wouldn't have got that extra stimulus from those few reps where I was cheating. The point is that you obviously want to make sure that your form is good, but do not let form be a limiting factor as to why you're not pushing yourself to the limit. Now, while the main training that you need to be doing to achieve aesthetics is lifting weights, it begs the question, is there any place for other forms of training like running or swimming or whatever else in your training? There is a saying from the YouTuber Jeff Cavalier from Athlete X: if you want to look like an athlete, you need to train like an athlete. I think that rings true because when you think about it, humans were not really mechanically designed to perform the bench press. Instead, we're designed to move around in space through walking, running, and swimming. So I think there is a place for alternative forms of training within your routine. And this is especially so because there are a host of benefits that come with those forms of training, like burning more calories, which means you're gonna lose more fat, which means you're gonna be more aesthetic. Regularly doing cardio will also just help you burn more calories at rest, which is again gonna make you lose fat. You're going to have better cardio and a better ability to push yourself harder at the gym. Engaging in other exercises that are really explosive, like sprints, can boost your testosterone and also contribute to more muscle growth and better aesthetics. I think also because running, walking, swimming all primarily take place outside, you're going to get the benefits that come with being outside as well, like being exposed to sunlight, which can also boost your testosterone and lead to more muscle growth. The way you eat is also different when your main goal is aesthetics. It's different to Eddie Hall, who will just eat whatever is in his vicinity. I think if you were within a 10-meter radius of this guy, you would probably be eaten. That's just the nature of his goal, because eating more food is going to contribute to him being able to lift more weight on the deadlift, no matter what it takes, and no matter if he does end up putting excess body fat on to achieve that goal. But for you, it's different because your goal is aesthetics. And if you were to eat the same way that Eddie Hall does, you are just going to get fat. Being aesthetic usually involves being at a lower level of body fat. I think we would all agree that it looks better to be leaner. But another huge component of being aesthetic is having muscle. Common sense would say to build muscle, you need to eat more food, which might involve putting on excess body fat. But then you also don't want to put on too much body fat, which would involve you eating less food. So it's a bit of a conundrum and it's hard to tell what to actually do. So right now, you will be in one of two scenarios. The first scenario is that you're relatively new to the gym and you're probably a bit fat, in which case there is great news for you because you can lose fat and build muscle at the same time. So step one is to get into the gym and lift, and you're going to build muscle because as a beginner, you can just look at a weight and you're going to achieve hypertrophy. Step two is to put the fork down and stop eating so much, and you'll see the fat melt away. Scenario two is that you might be in an intermediate stage in your lifting journey where you've exhausted your beginner gains now, and you might not be making as much progress as you'd like. And you're now considering a bulk because that's what you've been told is necessary to build muscle. But you don't want to put on the fat that comes with bulking. My take is that a bulk is not required to build muscle, at least in the way it's traditionally understood. You can instead be in a lean bulk, eating 100 to 200 calories above your maintenance calories. That way, you can stay at an acceptable level of body fat for aesthetics, whilst building muscle at the same time. You don't need to eat excessively to build muscle because you're just going to get fat, which is not achieving our goal of aesthetics. Realistically, if you're weighing yourself every day, your weight should remain very consistent. Maybe over the course of a month, you put on 1 to 2 kilos. You can stay in this state for quite a while of time as well, where you are building muscle, but you're not getting excessively fat. However, after a while, remaining in a lean bulk, you might get to the point where you're a bit unhappy with the level of fat you've put back on. In which case, you can do an aggressive mini cut and strip away all of the fat that you've put on in the past few months within a matter of weeks. That's compared to doing an excessive bulk where you put on 10, 15 kilos. And if you want to lose that fat, that's going to take a significant amount of time. So hopefully you enjoyed and learned something from this video, in which case consider subscribing because we are getting to 2K subs. As always, leave a like, leave a comment, let me know what you think. I always reply to the comments and I will see you later.